It was 10 o'clock at night and I was sick. My head was splitting, a feverish haze pinning me to the bed. I was about to text my fiancée when a message from her lit up my phone. James is not feeling well, so I'm going to stay and take care of him. You go ahead and sleep. A roar filled my ears like my skull was about to crack open. My hands trembled as I typed back. Victoria, I'm sick, too. It's late. You need to come home. Her reply was almost instant. Marcus, can you grow up? James is sick. So suddenly you're sick. Can you stop being so childish? I'm actually sick. Seriously, Marcus, could you come up with a better excuse? I told you my best friend is sick. Just be understanding for once. Okay. In that moment, a searing pain shot through my chest. I'd met my fiancée, Victoria Hayes, in college. At Columbia University, she was one of the most sought-after girls on campus. It was her eyes, almond-shaped and sharp, that held a natural, captivating allure. I pursued her for 3 solid years. It wasn't until graduation was on the horizon, right when her guy best friend James Mitchell left to go abroad, that she finally agreed to be with me. For her, I turned down a merger marriage my family had arranged, leading to a massive fight with my parents. After we got together, life was sweet for a while. Victoria leveraged her stunning looks to become a minor influencer, doing makeup tutorials on Instagram Live and TikTok from home. We had planned to get married in a month. But ever since James came back, everything had changed. She barely streamed anymore. Her Instagram feed was a constant stream of her dates with James. Lunch in Soho, shopping on Fifth Avenue, movies at the Angelica. They looked for all the world like a couple deep in the honeymoon phase. We fought about it constantly, but she always had the same defense. Marcus, why do you have to be so insecure? We're about to get married. What's the big deal if I spend some time with my best friend before the wedding? I'll see less of him after we're married. I promise. And ever since James returned, she'd refused to be intimate with me. I kept telling myself that we were almost married, that things would change once she had the ring on her finger. Until tonight, the night she didn't come home. The next morning, the pain in my head was even worse. I wanted to slam it against the wall just to make it stop. I had zero strength, and when I touched my forehead, it was burning up. I had a high fever. I called Victoria. It went to voicemail 4-5 times before someone picked up. It was James's voice. What the hell do you want this early? We're sleeping. Stop being so annoying. He hung up. I was shaking with rage. Memories of my time with Victoria flooded my mind, each one a wave of pain that crashed over me, leaving me breathless. I did so many stupid things trying to win her over in college. I once spelled out her name with candles in the courtyard of her dorm, standing in the middle of a heart I'd made, holding 999 roses. She came down and in front of a cheering crowd, she snatched the bouquet and threw it in my face. I sang a ballad to her on stage at a university gala. I sent her gifts for every holiday, big or small. She finally told me she'd give me a chance if I wrote her 100 unique 1,000-word love letters. For months, I poured my heart out onto the page for her every single day. But during that time, I saw her and James growing closer, always together, a perfectly matched pair. My friends told me to give up, that she wasn't worth it. I had written the 99th letter, and her attitude toward me was still as cold as ever. I decided not to write the last one. I was going to keep one last shred of my dignity and walk away for good. But then the news broke that James was moving abroad. In what seemed like a fit of spite, Victoria finally agreed to be with me. Shaking myself free from the memories, I pulled my thoughts together. Finally, I had no choice but to call my assistant, Isabella Sinclair. I was in the hospital for 3 days. For almost that entire time, Isabella was by my side. In those 3 days, I didn't get a single call or a text from Victoria. Isabella was sitting by my hospital bed, peeling an apple. Sunlight streamed through the window, casting a soft glow on her face. Her dark, silky hair was scattered over her shoulders. The slight curl at the ends added a touch of playful charm. Her fair skin looked almost translucent, like polished marble without a single flaw. In that moment, Isabella was breathtakingly beautiful. I couldn't help but stare. Isabella had also been one of the most popular girls at Columbia University. Back then, she had a reputation for being cold and unapproachable, earning her the nickname Ice Queen. I never understood why. After graduation, Isabella chose to come work as a junior assistant at my family's company, the Ashford Corporation, instead of taking a cushy executive role at her own family's powerhouse, Sinclair Holdings. She seemed to notice me watching her, and a faint blush colored her cheeks. "While you've been out for the last 2 days, I had the doctors run a full workup," she said, a clear note of relief in her voice. "Thankfully, it's nothing serious. You just need to rest for a few more days and you'll be fine." I thought to myself, a full workup for a bad flu. But her next words confused me even more. Isabella continued, her tone suddenly serious. "For the next few weeks, you cannot be intimate with Victoria. You have to promise me, Marcus." "Why, Mr. Ashford," she said, her voice firm. "Just promise me. You have to remember I would never do anything to hurt you. There's something I need to confirm. As soon as I know for sure, I'll tell you everything." I'd known Isabella for years. In the 2 years she'd worked for me, she only ever called me Mr. Ashford when something was critically important. Otherwise, it was always just Marcus. Though I was completely bewildered, I knew she had my best interests at heart. I thought for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, I promise." Isabella nodded back, her focus returning to the apple in her hands. She knew my personality. If I gave my word, I'd keep it. Just then, my phone buzzed. I picked it up. After 3 days of silence, a message from Victoria had finally arrived. "Marcus, clean up the apartment. James is not feeling well, and the place he's renting is too small and stuffy. I'm bringing him over to stay for a couple of days to recover." I felt the blood rush to my head. My lungs were on fire. She wanted to bring that man into our home. I nearly smashed my phone to pieces. In that instant, I finally saw Victoria for who she really was. The last bit of hope I had for us died. This wedding was absolutely, unequivocally not happening. I started typing a furious message telling her it was over. But then I stopped. Based on her text, she clearly hadn't been home in days. She had probably already betrayed me. If that was the case, I couldn't let them off that easily. Thinking this, I deleted my message and typed back a single word. "Okay." After sending it, I turned to Isabella. "Victoria is bringing her guy best friend to stay at my place for a few days. I need you to go buy some high-end, discreet security cameras. We're going back there to set them up. Let's see what those 2 cheating bastards get up to." Isabella's eyes turned to ice. "Of course," she said. "One more thing," I added. Victoria's brother, Kevin Hayes, he got fired from his last job as a logistics supervisor for taking kickbacks and embezzling funds. Victoria used our engagement to pressure me into giving him the same position at our company. I wanted to find out if his hands are clean this time. With everything arranged, I was back in my apartment 2 nights later, sitting on the couch and flipping through old photos of Victoria and me. Suddenly, the front door opened. Victoria walked in, her arm linked with James's. She frowned when she saw me. "Marcus, what are you doing just sitting there? James isn't well. Aren't you going to help him?" I didn't move, my eyes cold as I watched them. "Oh. He managed to walk up from the street, but he can't make it across the living room. Must have been an exhausting few days for him." Victoria's face darkened instantly. "Marcus, what is that supposed to mean? Why is your mind always in the gutter?" "My mind is in the gutter, or are your actions just foul?" I kept the thought to myself to ensure my plan went smoothly. Just then, I saw James sneak a little pinch on Victoria's waist before shooting a provocative glance in my direction. A flicker of unease crossed Victoria's face. My heart sank. I stared daggers at James, fighting the urge to lunge across the room and beat him to a pulp. Seeing my furious expression, James put on a wounded act. "You know what, Victoria? Maybe I should just go. It seems like Marcus doesn't want me here." His voice trembled as if he were about to cry. It made my stomach turn. Victoria immediately rushed to comfort him. "It's okay, James. I said you can stay, so you'll stay." She then whirled on me. Marcus, look what you did. You made James upset. Apologize to him. Now. I was only just realizing that when you truly love someone, their every glance, every action, every tone of voice has the power to wound you. But when you finally decide to let them go, their most venomous words barely leave a scratch. That's how I felt now. She brought her lover into my home and expected me to apologize. I let out a short, sharp laugh. I'm sorry. What exactly did I do to him? Victoria's face turned red with anger. She pointed a finger at me. Your attitude is terrible. Well, I think James's attitude sucks. Shouldn't he apologize to me? Her expression grew colder, her eyes like chips of ice. Marcus, I know you're not happy about this, but he's a guest in our home. Is this how you treat a guest? I shrugged. I didn't invite him. He's the one who shamelessly invited himself. Victoria stared at me, her face a mask of disbelief, as if she were looking at a stranger. You've changed, Marcus. You've become disgusting. I invited James by saying that you're showing me zero respect. My own anger flared. And you respected me when you brought him here. I told you he's sick. What's the big deal if he stays here to recover for a few days? I snatched my hospital discharge papers from the coffee table and threw them at her feet. I was sick, too. I was in the hospital for 3 days. Where were you? She didn't even glance at the papers on the floor. Her eyes were filled with disappointment. Marcus, you're the CEO of a company, not a 3-year-old. How can you be so immature, faking a hospital record just to guilt-trip me? I stared at her, utterly incredulous. In that moment, the very last wisp of affection I had for her vanished completely. Victoria turned her back on me. James, you could take the master bedroom for a few days. It's bigger, the air circulation is better, and it gets more light. It'll be good for your recovery. With that, she guided James toward the master bedroom. His hand rested casually on her waist, and he didn't forget to throw a mocking smirk back at me over his shoulder. Goddamn cheating bastards, I muttered. I let out a cold snort, strode to the door, and slammed it shut behind me. I couldn't stand to be in that apartment another second. I decided then and there that I'd put it on the market next month. I drove out to my house in Greenwich, the one I bought to be our marital home. I had planned on surprising her with it this week. Now, it seemed pointless. Lying on the bed, I opened the live feed from the security cameras on my tablet. On the screen, James was lounging in my bed playing on his phone. Victoria was in the kitchen brewing something. I zoomed in and saw she was preparing packets of some kind of herbal medicine. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. This woman hasn't set foot in a kitchen once since we got together. And now she's playing nurse for James, brewing him herbal remedies. And from the practiced way she moved, it was clear this wasn't her first time. Once the concoction was ready, Victoria carried the mug to the bedroom and carefully spoon-fed it to James bit by bit. Even while taking his medicine, James's hands were busy. He smirked and crept a feel of her chest. Victoria didn't seem to mind, just shot him a playful look of annoyance. Stop it. Finish this first. Marcus is gone. We'll have plenty of time for that later. Even though I'd already decided to let her go, my fists clenched and a hot rage surged through me. After she finished feeding James, Victoria gently wiped the corners of his mouth with a tissue. Her eyes held a tenderness I had never ever seen directed at me. Once that was done, she went into the bathroom to shower. Left alone, James looked bored. While Victoria was showering, he got out of bed, rummaged through her dresser, pulled out a piece of her lingerie, and held it to his nose, inhaling deeply. The look on his face was utterly sleazy. When Victoria came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, she climbed onto the bed and immediately started tearing at James's clothes. James panted heavily. Victoria, what if Marcus comes back? If he finds out about this, he'll definitely call off the wedding. Victoria, busy unbuttoning his shirt, just laughed. He won't. Marcus told me he could never leave me. And even if he did walk in, so what? He's so in love with me. He's practically spineless. He can't live without me. You're still sick, she whispered. Just lie back and don't move. I'll do all the work. As I watched the vile scene unfold with Victoria taking the lead, a wave of nausea washed over me. I scrambled to the bathroom and retched into the toilet. Right then, my phone rang. It was Isabella. Her voice was sharp with urgency. "Marcus, whatever you do, do not sleep with Victoria." I confirmed it. "James has HIV." I collapsed onto the cold tile of the bathroom floor and started to laugh, a wild, broken laugh that brought tears to my eyes. I knew in that moment that Victoria's life was over. "I'm really worried about you," Isabella continued, her voice tight. "I need to give you a full briefing on this. Where are you right now?" I gave her the Greenwich address and she said she'd be there in half an hour. After hanging up, my emotions were a chaotic storm of profound heartache and vicious satisfaction. I went down to my wine cellar and pulled out several bottles of my best single malt scotch. By the time Isabella arrived, I was already several glasses in. I held up my glass to her. "Isabella, care to join me?" I knew she rarely drank, but she took the glass I offered and drank alongside me. She took a large swallow, and a crimson flush immediately spread across her porcelain cheeks, making her look even more stunning. "After James came back to the States, I started looking into him online," Isabella began. "By chance, I found a post on a subreddit. The account was brand new and had no karma, so it had almost no visibility." She forwarded the link to my phone. I opened it. The post was made under a real name, Emma Richardson. In it, she accused James Mitchell of giving her HIV and prayed for his ruin. She wrote that she'd met James while they were both abroad. At first, they just interacted on social media. Then James started calling her frequently, his words always full of warmth and concern. Gradually, their online connection moved offline and they started dating. On every date, James was the epitome of romance. Flowers, gifts, trips to beautiful places. Emma, who had little dating experience, quickly fell for his charm. However, she was oblivious to the secret James hid behind his handsome, witty facade. He began pressuring her for more and more intimacy, and blinded by love, Emma agreed to all of it. Then one day she started feeling sick. A trip to the doctor and a series of tests delivered a devastating blow. She had contracted HIV. Through painful reflection and confrontation, she discovered that James had been hiding his diagnosis the entire time. Her world collapsed. She was still a student, only 20 years old. She couldn't accept the cruel reality and was terrified of telling her parents. James had destroyed her life and she swore she would find him and make him pay. Attached to the post was a photo of James with his arm around her. "That son of a bleep is a monster," I said. Seeing my dark expression, Isabella continued, "I met with Emma earlier today. She's a sweet, innocent-looking girl. It's just such a tragedy. As for the HIV, I had a friend overseas run a background check a few days ago. The confirmation came back today. It's true. And not only that, there's a well-known club for HIV-positive individuals who engage in risky behavior abroad. James was a member." I turned to Isabella. My voice was cold. "Contact Emma Richardson. Invite her to my wedding next month. Tell her James Mitchell will be there." I drank way too much. Before I knew it, Isabella was helping me to bed. I leaned heavily against her, feeling the softness of her body, smelling the clean, fresh scent that always seemed to cling to her. She laid me down on the bed but didn't leave. Instead, she sat on the edge beside me. She must have thought I was asleep. Her small, soft hand gently caressed my cheek. She whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Marcus, do you know I've been in love with you for so long? 10 years ago, my mom and I were in a car accident. My mother died at the scene. I was critically injured, on the verge of death. Just as I was about to give up, you appeared. You were the one who carried me to the hospital. Even now, I can remember the warmth of your body, your ragged breathing, the strong, steady beat of your heart, and the scent you had like sunshine. If you hadn't saved me, I would have died that day. To me, you were my savior. You gave me a second life. Later, I found out who you were and made sure I applied to the same university as you. But I'm not good at expressing my feelings. After my mom died, I closed myself off from everyone. I didn't know how to talk to people, how to get close to you, how to tell you how I felt. All I could do was watch you from a distance. Do you have any idea how much it hurt watching you chase after Victoria like that? I kept thinking if it were me you were pursuing, it would have been so easy. I would have said yes without a moment of hesitation. When graduation was getting close and she still hadn't said yes, I was so happy. I begged my father to approach your parents about that arranged marriage. But fate is a cruel thing. You still ended up with her. Do you know why I turned down my father's offer to join Sinclair Holdings? I came to your company instead. I thought even if I can't be with you, just being near you would be enough. When I heard you were getting married, my heart shattered. I was so angry, so jealous. Why wasn't it me you were marrying? I didn't want to see you marry someone else. So I was the one who told James you were getting married to Victoria. And just as I expected, he came back. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I had no idea he was sick. I swear I didn't know he had HIV. I was just so in love with you. I'm so sorry, Marcus. I almost got you killed. At this, Isabella broke down completely. Tears streamed from her eyes like broken pearls, splashing onto my face. Listening to her confession, my mind was reeling. The little girl I'd saved from that car crash 10 years ago, it was her. Honestly, Isabella was far more beautiful than Victoria with her flawless skin and impossibly long legs. But her regal, aloof demeanor had always intimidated potential suitors. Victoria, while not as classically beautiful, had a seductive charm and those captivating eyes that drew men to her like moths to a flame. I'd be lying if I said I never had a single thought about the goddess-level beauty working by my side for 2 years. But my world had revolved around Victoria, and Isabella's professional, cool exterior kept our relationship strictly business. If I hadn't been drunk tonight, I doubt Isabella, so reserved and unexpressive, would have ever said these words in her entire life. I let my eyes flutter open. Seeing her there crying her heart out, I was overwhelmed with a feeling of tenderness. I opened my eyes fully, reached out, and pulled her in my arms. My lips found hers, soft and trembling. She panicked, her eyes darting back and forth as she made muffled sounds of protest. She tried to push me away, but she was too weak. After a brief struggle, she melted. Her eyes closed, and her hands slowly wrapped around my neck. That night, we just kissed, a long, desperate kiss. The alcohol was pulling me under. Soon after, I fell into a deep sleep, holding Isabella in my arms. The next morning, I was woken up by my phone ringing. The caller ID said Victoria. The second I answered, her voice, raw and furious, blasted through the speaker. Marcus, where the hell are you? Aren't you going to come back and make breakfast for me and James? I held the phone away from my ear, my own voice flat and cold. Make it yourselves. I'm out of town on business. Business? You dare to go on a business trip right before our wedding? Do you even want to get married anymore? And I'm telling you, Marcus, my brother Kevin still needs a house. You'll buy him one right now. Otherwise, you can forget about this wedding. I let out a cold laugh. Given Kevin's history, he was no doubt taking kickbacks and embezzling funds from his new position, banking on me being his future brother-in-law. Once Isabella found concrete proof, the only house I'd be getting him was a jail cell with top-tier security. For now, I played along. Victoria, I'm in the middle of a trip. I'll definitely be back before the wedding. Don't worry. As for the house, relax. Once we're married, will you have any trouble affording a house for your brother? You could buy him 10 houses if you wanted to. She seemed to think that made sense and didn't press the issue. She hung up in a huff. A few days later, I got a call from Victoria's mother, Patricia. Son-in-law, she began sweetly, your father-in-law and I saw a beautiful villa the other day, and Victoria mentioned that after you two are married, you're going to buy a house for our poor, struggling Kevin. We were thinking. I knew exactly where this was going. Of course, Patricia. Once Victoria and I are married, we're all family. Just tell me what kind of villa you want. It's as good as yours. Patricia's voice was giddy with joy. Oh, Marcus, I knew you were a respectful, wonderful boy. With you saying that, I can rest easy knowing our Victoria is in good hands. For the next month, I stayed at the Greenwich house. Isabella, however, didn't come back after that night. She said she would wait until things were completely over with Victoria before we could be together. A month later, the day of my wedding to Victoria arrived as scheduled. It was held at the plaza in a grand ballroom filled to capacity. My family was there. Victoria's family was there, and all our friends. I had also invited Isabella's entire family and their circle of friends. The Sinclair family's friends were confused. They didn't have much of a connection to the Ashford family. Why had they been invited to Marcus Ashford's wedding? But since both families were titans of New York society, they attended out of courtesy. Guests also noticed something odd. The number of security guards was unusually high, and they were all wearing white gloves. I arrived at the ballroom early, but there was no sign of Victoria. Victoria's family, who came from a working-class neighborhood in Queens, were clearly out of their element at such a lavish event. The moment I appeared, her relatives swarmed me. Her mother, Patricia, announced proudly to anyone who would listen, "I'm telling you, my Victoria married a good one." Marcus said that after the wedding, not only is he buying Kevin a home, he's getting us a villa. She turned to me, her eyes gleaming. "Isn't that right, Marcus?" I knew she was saying this in public to lock me in. I smiled graciously. "Patricia, after Victoria and I are married, we'll be one family. I couldn't let you keep living in that old house." Of course, a new house and a villa are on the list. Victoria's aunt chimed in. "I knew it. I've watched that girl grow up, and I always said she was destined for great things. A top university, and now such a rich husband." The other relatives piled on. "Patricia, you and Richard really hit the jackpot. Such a wealthy and considerate son-in-law." "That's right. With this marriage, you'll be New York socialites living in mansions, driving luxury cars. Everyone will have to respect you. Of all our kids, your Victoria is by far the most successful." "Oh, if only my daughter were Victoria." Patricia beamed, her face flushed with pride. "Well, our Victoria is quite a catch herself. Beautiful and a Columbia University graduate, and she's always been such a good, sweet girl. She's more than a match for Marcus." It was time for the ceremony to begin, but Victoria was still a no-show. Guests started murmuring, urging me to call her. I had no choice but to pull out my phone and dial her number. The first call went unanswered. I called again and again and again. On the 7th try, she finally picked up. I had accidentally left the phone connected to the ballroom sound system, so our entire conversation was broadcast for everyone to hear. "Where are you? Why aren't you here yet?" Victoria's voice was impatient. "I'm busy with something important. I'll be there soon." I pressed her. What could possibly be more important than our wedding? "It's time. All our friends and family are waiting." Her voice, sharp with anger, shot back through the speakers. "I told you I'm doing something important. Will you get off my back?" I kept my tone patient. "Victoria, you need to have your priorities straight. This is our wedding day. All of our guests are waiting. We can't be this disrespectful. Is anything you're doing more important than everyone who came here for us today?" The guests were all whispering now. What was wrong with Victoria? What could be more important than her own wedding? And why was she speaking to Marcus with such contempt? Victoria's voice was practically a snarl. "Marcus, what is your problem? It's not like I'm not coming, am I? So what if the guests have to wait a little longer? Are they more important than James? I'm in the middle of making his herbal medicine. Don't push me or there won't be a wedding at all." A collective gasp went through the hall. Everyone's expression soured. They turned to each other asking who this James was, that he was more important than every single guest in the room. Was this the kind of woman the Hayes family had raised? Of course, some of my old college friends were in the crowd. They all knew about Victoria and James's inseparable past. They knew how long I chased her. And now on the most important day of her life, she was still with him. They looked at me with pity. My face was a mask of thunder. I was about to say more, but she hung up. My parents looked furious. The moment the call ended, they hurried over to me, demanding an explanation. I could only offer a simple one. James was her guy best friend, and she was taking care of him because he was sick. My parents, though livid, managed to restrain themselves for the sake of appearances. But the warm looks they'd been giving the Hayes family were gone, replaced by icy glares. Victoria's parents, meanwhile, were bombarded with questions from their relatives. They stood there red-faced and embarrassed, not knowing what to say. They frantically started calling Victoria, urging her to get there immediately. An hour later, the bride finally arrived, dressed in her wedding gown. Walking beside her in a tailored suit was James. They were a handsome couple. In fact, they looked more like the bride and groom than we did. The moment they walked in together, the guests started whispering. This pale young man must be the James she had said was more important than all of them. Now, even the Hayes family relatives looked horrified. My parents' faces were stoned. Victoria walked up to me, standing with her back to the massive projection screen at the front of the ballroom. Just then, my phone vibrated. I glanced down. It was a text from James. "I've been living with your fiancé for a month. You don't actually think nothing happened, do you?" A strange expression crossed my face. I had the video of their affair ready to go, but now it seemed James himself was eager to blow this whole thing up. A small smirk played on my lips. I accidentally mirrored my phone screen to the projector, making our chat visible to the entire room. The guests gasped as they saw the conversation. The whispers grew louder. I typed back, "I trust Victoria. She told me she would love me forever." James replied, "Love you? Is that why she was sleeping with me right before your wedding? I'm telling you, she loves me. It's always been me. She belongs to me." I kept baiting him. "I know Victoria. She would never do anything to betray me. In my eyes, she's pure and perfect. If you keep trying to drive a wedge between us, I'll have security throw you out." James, haha. Pure. You have no idea what a freak she is in bed. The faces of the Hayes family were turning shades of purple. Victoria's parents started to rise from their seats to rush the stage, but a security guard placed a firm hand on each of their shoulders, forcing them back down. They opened their mouths to protest, but one look at the guard's menacing expression and they snapped them shut. Victoria was oblivious, her back still to the screen. She just thought it was strange that everyone was staring at her with such a bizarre mix of mockery, pity, and disgust. The officiant who had been about to start the ceremony was now just standing there, mouth agape, staring at the screen in a state of shock. I pretended to be angry. "Do you have proof? Because without it, this is slander and I'll sue you." "James, you want proof? Fine. Here you go." One by one, intimate photos started appearing on the screen. Them feeding each other, kissing, and then a nude photo of Victoria fast asleep in his bed. But the final blow was a video. I tapped the play button and the sound of Victoria's moans filled the entire grand ballroom. The room erupted. My parents were livid, their eyes practically shooting flames. Victoria finally realized something was wrong. She turned around, saw the screen, and her mind went blank. Her father could no longer contain himself. This time, the guards let him pass. He stormed onto the stage and slapped her hard across the face. "How could I have raised such a shameless creature? You've disgraced our entire family." Her mother ran up as well, grabbing Victoria's arm. "Victoria, what have you done? You have to apologize to Marcus right now. Quickly. Marcus loves you so much. If you just say you're sorry, he'll forgive you." Victoria snapped back to reality and lunged at me, screaming, "Hey, Marcus, you bastard. Turn it off. Turn it off now." I feigned shock, fumbling with my phone to shut off the projection. Victoria clawed at my suit, her eyes wild with madness. "Marcus, you're so cruel. You're trying to ruin me." I shoved her away, my own voice full of anguish. "Victoria, how could you betray me like this? After all these years, after everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me. If James hadn't sent me these, I would have been a fool forever." Victoria saw that every single person in the room, including her own relatives, was looking at her with contempt. She turned to James, her expression one of utter disbelief. "James, why? Why would you do this to me? Why would you send these now?" James walked to her side, his voice dripping with affection. "Because I love you, Victoria. I couldn't stand to see you marry him. I want to be with you forever. Say you'll be with me. Victoria was silent. James had asked her this before many times. But she knew he couldn't provide the lifestyle she craved, so she had always refused. But now, as if making a final, desperate decision, she gritted her teeth. Fine, I'll do it. I'm not marrying him today. Let's get out of here. With that, she stood up, took James's arm, and tried to walk off the stage. Her parents and her brother Kevin panicked, rushing up to block their path. They knew if Victoria walked out that door, the promises of houses and villas would vanish with her. Her father's voice was a roar of fury. Victoria, if you dare leave with this pretty boy, you will never set foot in our house again. We will no longer have a daughter. Victoria looked at her furious father, her own voice defiant. James is the love of my life. Even if you disown me today, I'm still leaving with him. Her parents turned pale, trembling with rage. The Hayes relatives were stunned into silence. Just moments before, they had been singing Victoria's praises. Now they saw her for what she was. A few of the more distant relatives, who had always been jealous of the Hayes, could barely contain their smirks. Look at them so smug all these years. They thought they had a perfect daughter, but it turns out she's just trash. I watched the scene unfold with cold detachment. I raised a hand and gave a subtle signal to the security guards at the main entrance. They understood immediately, opening the large ballroom doors to escort a young woman inside. It was Emma Richardson, the girl James had infected. The moment Emma saw James on the stage, she let out a cry of rage and charged at him, hitting and scratching him like a woman possessed. The guests were shocked yet again. What now? The drama was relentless. James was stunned. Emma was supposed to be overseas. How did she get here? Emma shrieked as she attacked him. James, you monster. You gave me HIV. You're a devil. You ruined my life. You're a demon. A collective gasp echoed through the room. Victoria, who had been about to attack Emma for accosting her beloved James, froze. Her mind went numb. Then an all-consuming terror washed over her. She grabbed James's arm frantically. James, she said you gave her HIV. Tell me it's not true. Tell me she's lying. When her parents heard the word HIV, they scrambled backward in horror. I signaled the security team to form a perimeter around the three of them on the stage. I couldn't have my audience leaving before the final act. Sure enough, the guests who had been about to flee at the mention of the disease settled back into their seats. There was no point in pretending anymore. James glared at Victoria. Yes, it's true. I have HIV, but you just said I was the love of your life. Having second thoughts now. All hope drained from Victoria's face. As if her strings had been cut, she collapsed onto the floor in a heap. I saw the utter despair in her eyes, and a feeling of immense satisfaction washed over me. She must have felt my gaze on her because she started crawling toward me. Her voice was a desperate plea. Marcus, I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please, you have to help me. James lunged forward and slapped her across the face. You, bleep. A minute ago, you were calling me the love of your life. Why are you begging him? If you love me so much, then you can come to hell with me. Victoria's face twisted in a mask of pure hatred. James, you're a monster. You're insane. I had seen enough of this farce. I made a motion for the guards to drag all three of them off the stage. The Hayes family guests, deeply ashamed, began to file out of the ballroom. Victoria's parents looked at me as if they wanted to say something, but they couldn't bring themselves to speak. They too scurried away in disgrace. The remaining guests murmured amongst themselves, shaking their heads. Seeing that everyone else was about to leave, I quickly took the microphone. My apologies, everyone. That was just a little dramatic interlude to get things started. The main event is about to begin. I then turned to Isabella's parents. Mr. and Mrs. Sinclair, I want you to know that I haven't touched Victoria since James returned. Isabella went with me to the hospital for a full screening, and the results confirmed I am perfectly healthy. The guests looked confused. Why was he explaining this to the Sinclairs? And now I announced, my voice ringing with joy, I would like to welcome you to my wedding to Isabella Sinclair. Thank you all for being here to witness it. As I finished speaking, the triumphant notes of the wedding march filled the ballroom. From the far end of the aisle, Isabella appeared, radiant in a stunning wedding gown, a brilliant smile on her face. Isabella was already more beautiful than Victoria, but in that dress, she was simply celestial, dazzling the entire room. My old college friends looked dumbfounded. Just moments ago they were feeling sorry for me. Now they were looking at me with such envy they probably wanted to strangle me. Isabella Sinclair had been the unattainable goddess for so many of them. And in the end, that bastard Marcus Ashford got her. Was there any justice in the world? Isabella's family and friends finally understood. This was why they had been invited. Today was for Isabella and Marcus. My own parents exchanged a look of pure, unadulterated joy. They had never liked Victoria and had tried to set me up with Isabella 2 years ago. Now their wish had finally come true. My father looked at me, his eyes filled with pride. He had undoubtedly figured out that the day's shocking twists and turns were all part of my plan. He could now rest easy, knowing the Ashford Corporation was in capable hands. Later, I heard that when Victoria found out about my marriage to Isabella, she went crazy trying to find me, but I never saw her again. I blocked all contact from the Hayes family. Kevin Hayes was prosecuted for embezzlement and taking kickbacks. He was sent to prison. Victoria and James stayed together. One night, she stabbed him. He survived, but his health deteriorated rapidly. He was dead within 6 months. Victoria was convicted of felony assault and sentenced to 5 years in prison. As for me, Isabella and I had a son and a daughter. Our life together has been nothing but happy.